Good morning, everyone. It is 9 a.m. My name is Alicia Milne. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, and I will call the meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is elections for election of a chair and a vice chair. If any of the committee members have a motion they'd like to put forward. This is for chair.
Chair, I'll nominate Deputy Mayor DeBreen.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Anyone opposed? Yep.
I was going to nominate Member Shipston for chair.
Is there another seconder for Member Shipston to be chair? Joan will second that. Any discussions? Okay, Chair, Member DeBreen, are you willing to stand and
I'll withdraw. Thank you,
can you, sorry, Mike?
Vice Chair.
I'll allow, or I'll decline at this time.
Okay,
Give somebody else a chance.
so Member DeBreen has declined. Member Shipston, you're okay? Sorry, could you turn your microphone on?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any opposed? Okay, so Member Shipston will be the chair of the Committee of Adjustment for the 2025 term, and we do need to elect a vice chair. Member DeBreen?
Mr. Shipston has his microphone on.
I'll nominate Member Joan John for vice chair.
Joan John for vice chair. A seconder for that. Member Milne. Joan, do you accept?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Any discussion or any opposition? Seeing none, Member John will be elected as the vice chair for the Committee of Adjustment for the 2025 term, and I will now turn it over to our chair, Member Shipston.
Do you want to come over here and move?
Okay, we have the item 3, confirmation of agenda. Be it resolved that the committee confirm the agenda is presented. May I have a mover and seconder? Oh, Barb and Brian, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. Declaration of pecuniary interest, if there's any now, or, oh, all in favor, sorry. Okay, item number 4, declaration of pecuniary interest. You can say it now or say it during the meeting. And seeing none, we'll go forward. Adoption of minutes. Be it resolved that the committee approve the minutes from the November 27th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meeting as presented. Mover and seconder, please. Jason and Brian, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And we go to presentations, and it's Corey from MHBC presentation for the minor variances in the school. So the floor is yours, Corey.
Good morning, members of committee. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. I think as everyone here knows, my name is Corey Chisholm with MHBC Planning. And today I'm the planning consultant before you on behalf of both Flato Developments as well as Blue Water District School Board. So the applications we have today are to facilitate the construction of the new school site, new elementary school site in the Glen Oak Phase 3 subdivision. And as I'll explain through the presentation, the reasons we're requesting, particularly the severance application at this stage, is to help expedite that process. And we've worked collaboratively with township staff, county staff, as well as Blue Water District School Board staff to kind of put our heads together and figure out how we can facilitate the school board moving forward as quickly as possible, understanding they have tight timelines to uphold once they obtain provincial funding for that school project to advance. And I'll explain that a bit further as well. I should mention before I get started, joining virtually this morning is Ariosto with VG Architects. So they're the architects retained by the school board. So if there's any specific questions on the current design that I might not be able to answer, Ariosto will probably be able to answer those better than I can. And we also have Ugo from Colliers online. And Colliers is acting as the project managers for the school board with this project as well. Actually, I think. Perfect. So this slide shows the location of the Glen Oak Phase 3 site, which is outlined in red. We know there's now a subdivision approved within that. And just for context, as we are dealing with a severance today, the wider property is just over 33 hectares in size. And the school site that we're proposing to sever from that is just over 3.3 hectares in size, so almost exactly 10% of the total property area. So this slide shows the approved Glen Oak Phase 3 draft plan. The school block is highlighted in blue. And then the identified in black are some of the roads around it, which will need to, one of the conditions for the severance is to place easements over those in order to provide access to the block, which will be landlocked in the short term while the subdivision catches up. Some additional background, the zoning on this property was approved back through the MZO in March of 2022. And the draft plan approval was received in May of 2024. Next slide. So there are 3 applications before the committee this morning. The first is a consent application requesting to sever the school block from the remainder of the subdivision. I'll come back to that. In order to achieve zoning compliance for that severance, we also need to request a minor variance. What a standard provision in your zoning bylaw is a minimum lot frontage for any lot, and that's on a publicly accessible road. So this is a little unusual where we're severing a piece of land in the interior of a property with no municipal road frontage at present time. So we do need a minor variance in order to address that zoning deficiency to allow for it to have no lot frontage on a public road. Again, that's a temporary situation, and some of the conditions the township and county staff have worked on have things in there that'll help address the functionality of that. The second minor variance is on behalf of the school board, and that's for increased maximum building height for the school. The school design they're looking to proceed with has a portion of it that's 3 stories. And it does require an increase from 11 meters up to 12.6 meters for that section. We have some drawings that'll show that a bit better. So just coming to the severance sketch, again, here we see the lands to be severed in the middle. And then what's outlined around that is where the easements will need to be placed for access. And those easements would follow the approved, what will become municipal roads. So the idea is there'll be access provided over that. There'll be kind of construction type roads in the short term to allow the school board to get in there and start their works. But once the roads around it get paved and assumed by the municipality, there wouldn't need to be a need for those easements anymore. They would naturally become public roads. So those easements wouldn't be required in the fullness of time. Just from a timeline perspective and why we are proceeding with this approach, in a typical process, we'd get a draft plan approved. There'd be a school block identified on it, and there's an arrangement for the school board to purchase that from the developer. That block of land needs to be legally created in order to be sold to the school board. So that doesn't actually become its own block until the subdivision gets registered. And there's quite a time delay between when there's draft plan approval, working through all the detailed engineering design, then going into the earthworks, and then pre-servicing where they put the pipes in the ground, pave the roads. It's not until all that is done that we typically register the subdivision, and that's when all the different lots and blocks are legally created. And lots can be sold to different homeowners. Blocks can be transferred back to the municipality, such as a park block or a stormwater management park or stormwater management pond. So in this case, the school board, how their model works is they can't actually start on the site plan approval process until they legally own the land. But in this case, they won't legally own the land until the whole subdivision's registered, which Flato's working towards. But likely we've started detailed engineering design. The schedule's to do start earthworks in the spring, early summer, go into pre-servicing late summer, fall, which would likely put us towards a registration date of sometime early in 2026. The school board right now is targeting to have the school open for the 2027 school year. But in order to meet those timelines, they need to legally purchase the block as soon as possible so that their team with Colliers, VG Architects, and others can start the site plan approval process, which the township will be involved with as well. And then they have an extensive construction program in order to get the school up and running. So as I mentioned earlier, kind of all the different stakeholders, township, county, Flato Developments, and the school board have had a number of meetings to try to figure out how can we facilitate those timelines and get the land severed so it's legally a distinct block. We can then sell it to the school board, they can take possession, and then they can proceed through the site plan approval and into their construction process. So happy to answer any further questions on that at the end of the presentation, but just wanted to provide that it is the reason we're doing it this way is because of the expedited timeline that the school board has to get that school open. So this slide shows the current site plan for the school. We see the school in the center. There's a drop-off area at the north, at the top, parking lot on the west side. And the portion that would be 3 stories is outlined in red. So you'll see it's a small portion of the overall school. Also point out on the west side, there is also a child care facility wing, which is a great feature to see co-located with the school. And we see soccer field on the east side and some further play area to the south. As it relates to this height variance, it is an ask to go from 11 meters to 12.6 meters. It would just apply to that portion of the building. And one thing we look at for height, especially in a low density neighborhood situation, is separation distance from the nearby residential. And in this case, the fact the school is placed centrally on the property helps a lot with that. So the closest point of that is just over 30 meters from the north property line, and then you have a 20-meter wide right-of-way before you'd get to the first lot on the north side of the road. So the houses on the north side across the street from the school would be over 50 meters from the closest point to the 3-story section of the school. Both, it's approximately 100 meters when we factor in the it is quite separated from the low density around it. From my perspective, I don't see a concern with that sort of height and transition. These are just some of the preliminary elevation drawing. So the top one is the north. So which is effectively the front of the school. So if you're looking at it from the north side, that's where that drop-off area is. That would be the north facade. And then the bottom one is the south facade. So if you're looking at it from the opposite side. And again, you can see the section that goes up to 3 stories is just a small portion of the overall building. And these are some of the current 3D renderings of the school. So just some brief planning context. The subject lands are designated primary settlement area, the Dundalk primary settlement area in the Grey County official plan. They're designated neighborhood in the Southgate official plan, and are zoned site-specific R7 zone in the township zoning bylaw. While that zone's called residential, it does permit all the uses under the community facility zone as well, and that's where the permission for the school exists. So a school's permitted on the property. The site's been designed, the school has been designed to comply with all the other zoning provisions, parking, setbacks, lot coverage, all those others. It's just the height that we need to request a minor variance for based on their design. So in summary, through the materials I submitted, I go through the planning framework and conclude that I believe both the severance, the minor variance for the lack of frontage on a municipal road, as well as the increased height for the school building itself are all appropriate and should be approved. I'm happy to answer any questions from committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Corey. Are there any questions from the committee, virtually or in attendance? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Corey, a note on the site plan or the proposed site plan diagram there. There's provision for 12 portables, I presume is what those are for.
Mhm.
Is there a minimum number of portable spaces that must be allotted to a school of this design, or a maximum, or how do they arrive at that 12, or is that just somebody's filling it in? Please.
That's a very good question. I don't have the answer to that, but I'll look to maybe I'll see if the architect online can speak to that a bit further.
Yeah, it's really a request by the board. Whenever they're undertaking a project of this sort of magnitude, they want to make sure that the future is taken care of. And portables are kind of a fact of life in school design because the population of an area sort of ebbs and flows. Usually when you build a new subdivision, there's lots of young families and you need a school right away. And it needs to be a big enough school to support the subdivision and the surrounding areas. But as those kids get bigger and go off to high school, the amount of kids going to the school tends to decrease. So they always want to build the school a little bit under capacity so that they're kind of at the sweet spot between the amplitude of those waves. So that's why they want to have portables. The school board wanted to show the maximum number of portables we could fit on the site. And so we've shown 12 as the maximum. There won't necessarily be 12. There might be 3, there might be 6, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. That's what yeah, it does that. So I was looking for the maximum number, and that you answered that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Barb?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, I had the portable question on my list of questions also. So thank you for that clarification. And not sure who wants to address this. It might be building. With the advent of portables, we know that we ran into difficulties with the inability to provide adequate parking as the number of portables increased in Dundalk at High Point and other schools. How is parking being planned for if those 12 portables are required? Is there sufficient area for the additional minimum parking requirements? And that is my first question.
I can answer that one as well. In our calculations, we have included the 12 portables in the number of parking spaces we are building. So it's a fairly low, I can't remember, it's 1.5 or 1 space per classroom. So we've had an additional 12 or 18 parking spaces to the project over and above the zoning requirements to accommodate those future portables.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, may I continue with my questions? Thank you. With the 3-story, I mean, I would imagine with current standards, full accessibility requirements would be met. Is there, for the 3rd story, is there elevators planned
Yeah,
for
there-
accessibility
Yeah,
needs?
there's an elevator, there has to be, and it's located in a convenient spot at the joint between the 2-story and the 3-story part so that it provides access to both the 2nd and the 3rd floor.
Awesome,
And
thank
it's
you.
fully
And
accessible. We actually have barrier-free washrooms on each level. So that is also kids who have to or teachers that have to use the washrooms, they are available on each level.
wonderful, thank you. And I didn't expect anything less, but it's worth asking. The temporary storm management pond being behind or where the future portables may be, is that going to be fenced? I mean, we're talking about children going out for playground, and I'm just wondering what the rules are around that when it's on a school property, even though it's indicated as temporary. Don't know who wants to answer that.
I can start, and I'll let the architects online jump in if they have anything to add or if they need to correct anything. But my understanding with the temporary storm pond is that it wouldn't be there when the school opens for the school year because the main one for the subdivision would be. It's in the shorter term when they start construction and the main pond's not fully up and operational, that it's there just to deal with stormwater on that site. But I'll let the architects correct me if they believe otherwise.
Yeah, Corey, you got it perfect. I think the stormwater for this site is actually to be directed to the street infrastructure, and from there it goes off to the right somewhere as part of the subdivision agreement. But during construction, the entire site will be fenced with safety fencing for construction purposes. And so, yeah, this will be a temporary pond because nobody likes walking around in knee-deep mud. So they'll try and direct the stormwater to these areas during construction.
Thank you. On the diagram, there's 3 circles, and forgive me, but I'm finding some of the lettering difficult to read even when exploded. What does that say? 3 something?
Please.
Oh, yep. And I have the luxury of having a more clear drawing in front of me than the screen. But it looks like those are 3 earth bin type garbage, the ones that are in the ground, partially.
Small box.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. And I think, and I suppose my last question is to, the requirement for fire suppression, given that our volunteer fire service does not currently have an aerial truck, how will the council address fire fighting measures with a 3-story commercial, well, not commercial, institutional building?
The building will be fully sprinkled, and so there'll be a Siamese connection at the front of the building. The fire trucks would likely come in that bus loop at the front and hook up to that. There'll be a municipal hydrant, there might be a local hydrant, and then connect to this sprinkler tree and pump it up. and that's what's required in the building code. And I think we're relying on the infrastructure of the subdivision to provide enough water to make that work.
Awesome. Those are my questions.
And
Thank you very much.
That's for after, after we open. During construction, it's up to the contractor to figure out how to deal with it, whether he has any standby trucks or something like that. That will be his job.
You're good. Joan, do you have any questions?
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just thinking, good morning, everyone. In my mind, because I've heard portable and I've known the stories with portable, and we're building this big, beautiful school, loving it, liking everything about it. Are the portables for future growth, or the portables will be in use as soon as the school is open? Just correct me if I'm wrong.
They are for future growth. The school is kind of, like I say, there's a bit of a crystal ball effect when you're planning a school. You tend to build it a little bit bigger than you think because nobody wants to put a portable there on day one. But occasionally it does happen that the second year they need a portable or two. But usually schools are phased in as the subdivision grows around them. And the reason we need to have this sort of pre-done is because school takes a lot longer to build than a house. And my experience is you build a school out in the middle of nowhere, and by the time the school is open, there's a whole ton of people living in houses all the way around it and a whole bunch of kids that need to go to a school. So the timing is important. And so they are there for future if needed. They're not there for day one.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all my question. Martin Barb asked most of what I was thinking of.
$5 into the community fund every time I do that. To the architect, I know the preliminary conceptual drawings, they're quite not detailed like a proper plan. With that extension for the height, is that just the building part, or does that include the giant HVAC systems that usually go on the roofs, or are they going to be put on the lower part? Because that could add 2 or 3 feet, if you understand the question there.
Yeah, I understand the question. Usually, and I think in your zoning as well, things like rooftop units and that are exempt from the height requirements. And yes, there will be some rooftop units on there. But if I can share my screen, can I do that? I've got a photograph I'd like to share with you. I don't know if I can. It's a Zoom thing, so.
Yeah, we're just switching the settings. Just 1 second.
Okay, share. There I go.
You should be able to now.
Yeah, okay. So, oh, sorry. Here we go. So can you see that? So this is a school that was built in Kitchener a year or so ago that is the
Sorry.
model.
No, we can't
No,
see
you
it yet.
can't see it.
No.
Okay, try now. No?
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a school that was built in Kitchener a year or two ago, and it serves as the model for what this school in Dundalk will be like, sort of aesthetically. And so you can see the 3-story portion at the front here, and then the 2-story portion at the back, and some 1-story stuff around where the daycare and the kindergartens are. And so I guess further to your question, we take quite a lot of care in trying to sort of hide the rooftop units in the middle of the floor plate over top of the corridors and such, so that you can't really see them from, close up to the building. Of course, when you're really far away, I suppose you'd see them, but this particular design has got 3 or 4 rooftop units in the over top of the 3-story section, and you can't see them. So that's, and the reason the 12.6 meters is because we have a floor to floor height for this type of building of 4.2 meters. We can't really shrink it to the point that we can get it under 11 meters. There's no way. It just won't work.
Thank you for that. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to jump in and clarify that the definition in the zoning bylaw does measure to the highest point of the building. So that sort of equipment is exempted from height.
Thank you. One other question that just popped up when I saw the plan and everybody's talking about the future use for the portables. When I look at the west side with the parking lot, obviously that's where the buses are going to be coming in. That's one of the problems at one of the schools now, the amount of buses. Could that be projected to be bigger because of the bus flow, or is that written in stone?
Well, the loop at the front of the building is for buses, like it's a drop-off loop for buses primarily. I suppose it can be used by visitors if they need to drop off at other times during the day, but that's where the buses are going to go, is in that front loop off of Street A.
Thank you.
The drop off on the side is for parent drop off pickup and so on. For the daycare, there's a couple spaces for the daycare, and then there's a whole bunch of area there for dropping your kid off into the playground early in the morning or picking them up from there.
Just to, if I can add too, it's probably not clear on that image up on the screen, but that bus drop off at the top is one way only. So it's quite wide with one-way traffic, and they've accommodated for extra width so buses can pull over and then also get by.
Thank you for that. That's good. Okay, is there any other further questions from the committee? Anything, Jason, or you're good? Yeah, okay. All right, well, be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment received the MHBC presentation and consent application B824 and minor variant applications A1324 and A1424 regarding the BWDSB future school site as information. Mover and seconder. Joan and Brian second it. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. So thank you, Corey. Yeah, I'm going to leave it on, I think. I will ask that anyone speaking about an application to state their full name and address for the record. Please keep all remarks relevant to the consent or minor variance application before us, as the Committee of Adjustment has no jurisdiction on any other matters. Any material submitted to the committee for viewing will remain the property of the Committee of Adjustment and will be available for public viewing in the application file and may be placed online. And thank you, Alicia, for this. It's very helpful. Please direct all the remarks and questions to the chairperson of the committee, being myself. This will enable the hearing to be conducted in an organized manner. And B824 Dundalk Village 2, Inc. The purpose of application B824 is to sever the subject lands to create a separate lot to contain a proposed school site. The lands are currently subject to draft plan of subdivision Glenelg Phase 3, conditionally approved by Grey County. The proposed severed lot is 3.315 hectares in lot area and will front on 4 future roads to be dedicated through the draft subdivision plan process, including the Bradley Street extension and streets A, C, and E yet to be named. Temporary access to the proposed school site will be provided along the south lot frontage of the proposed school site southwesterly across the county rail trail to Corbett Street. This temporary access is intended for construction purposes until roadways within the Glenelg Phase 3 subdivision are built to municipal standards and dedicated as public roads. So the effect of the application is to create a 3.315 hectare parcel for the school site with temporary access southwest to Corbett Street. The separate parcel will allow the Blue Water District School Board to begin construction of the public school. During construction, public roadways will be built and dedicated to the township. Application A1324 has been submitted by the owner of the subject lands for a minor variance on section 54B of the zoning bylaw requiring lots to front upon and has direct access to an improved public street. The Blue Water District School Board has submitted minor variance A1424 on building height for the proposed school building. And the location of the subject land is Concession 1, SWTSR Lot 225, Concession 2, SWTSR Part Lots 225 and 226, RP 16R7565, Part 1, Geographic Township of Proton, Township of Southgate. Is there a request for deferral or withdrawal of an application?
Through the chair, there have been none received.
And that being said, we can proceed. May I please have clarification that the sign was posted?
Yes, through the chair, the sign was posted and notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act.
Thank you, Alicia. So, Bill, you're our planner. Could you review all comments received and present your report, please?
Thank you, Chair Gibson. Congratulations on your election. I will review the comments on the proposed severance, which is the first application. The historic Saugeen Métis had no concerns. They're encouraging green development standards for the site. Enbridge Gas had no concerns with the application. They're suggesting that the developer needs to verify the location of the gas service when required. The SVCA, Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, and advised that the GRCA would be commenting on the proposed files. The GRCA emailed 2 sets of comments, noting that the school site is not within the Conservation Authority regulated area, and that they do not have any objections as long as the proposal is consistent with the draft plan application. The County of Grey, I believe, sent fairly lengthy comments. They go through the history of the application, the reason for the consent, the fact that the subdivision does have draft plan approval with a number of conditions, that the lands are in a primary settlement area and hazard lands, that the site plan provides for a temporary access, and they note the crossing of the rail trail is to be considered in conditions for the application. They recommend that the following conditions be considered. The first is that as a condition of consent, the applicants enter an agreement with the county to permit a temporary easement across the rail trail with details around the design of the road, liability, indemnification, etc. Also, as a condition of consent, that there be a binding memorandum of understanding satisfactory to the county at its sole discretion, and that would deal with the development of the lands. They need a detailed road and servicing construction plan, including phasing and construction timelines for the county and the township. As a condition of consent, the applicants submit a red line submission for the draft plan to remove the severed lands from the draft approval. And as a condition of consent or future site plan application, that a water balance study and a stage 2 archaeological study be undertaken on the proposed school site. I believe that is all the comments received for file B824. Were there any questions about the comments?
Any questions? Joan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
I read all the details.
Okay, that's good. So, item 3, if the applicant is in attendance, and if so, would they care to come forward to present their case?
And I've got nothing further to add unless there's any further questions.
Okay. Well, I do have one that after I read, and maybe I should have asked it after, but there's a part of conveyance of school site does not reduce any parkland dedication requirements that may apply to the entire Glen Elk subdivision. Well, does not reduce and then may, like, nothing will be changed as far as any green or parkland spaces because of the severance?
That's correct. So at the time of draft plan approval, we had to do the parkland dedication for the whole developable area of the site, which included the school block. You may recall there is a slight under dedication of parkland on this site and an over dedication on the Ida Street subdivision. So, and then it's a wash when you add those two together. So what they're just clarifying is that because we're doing this early, we're severing the school block, that doesn't then in turn reduce the overall parkland, and that's not the case.
Thank you. Are there any others in attendance that would like to speak in support of this application? Seeing none, are there any others in attendance that would like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I will again ask the committee members if there is a requirement for further discussion, review, or ask if any conditions are required, if not already mentioned. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one further question for me regarding access. I note that the proponent or the landowner owns the lands immediately, and I'll call it east, out to Highway 10. Is there a possibility we can build a temporary construction road into the new school from the highway rather than drag everything through subdivisions that are currently being built or are built?
That's an excellent question.
It's not the first time I've asked that question, just to be clear.
So the plan at this stage is to bring a construction access actually off of Ida Street to the west and come through the Glen Elk Phase 2 subdivision lands, which aren't yet constructed. So those are north of where the Phase 1 is built right now.
Yep.
And the idea is not just for the school, but for this subdivision would be built first, using that as a construction, and then the Phase 2 would get built. So that would avoid the need for the construction traffic to come up through for example, Bradley Street, which I know goes through existing neighborhoods, and then also down through Glen Elk Phase 1, which is now full of residents as well. And that is much shorter distance than trying to run it all the way out to the high. It'd be a couple kilometers, I believe, from this site to get to the highway.
Excellent. No, that's great. I hadn't heard the other alternative you just described there. So no, that's good. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could maybe read the executive summary of the report into the record. I neglected to do that with the comments, but we do have our planning report on file B824. If I could briefly go through it, there has been an excellent summary done by by Corey and his group. Just to say that as committee knows, this is a proposal to sever a 3.315 hectare lot for the school. The lot would be owned by the board with a temporary construction access, as we've already talked about. There's several conditions of consent proposed. One is that the right-of-way over the construction access is provided to the township and other public agency vehicles to use, and that it be maintained in a proper standard. And then obviously the roads in Glen Elk Phase 3 must be constructed and dedicated to the township before occupancy of the school is allowed. And there are other standard conditions in there that we're recommending. I think in the resolution that's before the committee, there are 7. There are 2 minor variances, which we'll get to later on in the meeting. A13 talks about the frontage of the proposed school site, or lack of frontage at this time on public streets. And I guess it would be A14. A13 has to be in full force and effect and conditions met before the lot can be separated. The other one is on building height, and that is independent in a sense of the severance application. And council or committee has had some discussion of that already. So we're recommending that the report be received and that the consent file B824 be approved, subject to the 7 conditions that are outlined in there. And I can go through them if need be, some of which mirror the county conditions regarding agreements being signed and so forth. And just to add that the whole project will be subject to site plan approval, so that will come back for approval, including that approval, of course, is delegated, but we always at this time have been presenting the site plan agreements to council, and so there may be some additional time to discuss the layout, but I think you've had a pretty full discussion and a good presentation from the architect, and it will address all the requirements of the zoning bylaw and good design based on the recommendations of the architect and the needs of the board. I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you, Bill. Are there any questions? No, it looks like we're good to go. So I will ask, may I request a mover and seconder to grant, refuse, defer the application, discuss and vote on the motion. Do I read the resolution now? Or, yep, okay. The recommendation is be resolved that the Committee of Adjustment, one, receive for information staff report PL 2025-006 for file B824 Dundalk Phase 2 Inc. Concessions 1 and 2, SWTSR Part Lots 225, 226, Glen Elk Phase 3, and 2, approve consent file B824, subject to the following conditions: that minor variance A1324 on section 54B is in full force and effect, so that the temporary access permitted is for construction purposes only, that an agreement be executed to provide that the temporary access be built and maintained to a standard satisfactory to the township, that all township vehicles and other public authorities be permitted access on the temporary road and public roads within the subdivision will be constructed by the owner to the township satisfaction before occupancy of the school is permitted, that an agreement provides for water and sanitary facilities during construction, including fire protection satisfactory to the Township Fire Department, that the proposed school site conveyance does not reduce any parkland dedication requirements that may apply to the entire Glen Elk Phase 3 subdivision, that a reference plan of survey be provided, including a description and/or terms for the temporary access to the severed lot to the satisfaction of Township Public Works, that standard conditions apply as recommended by other agencies and township departments, including that all requirements of the township, financial or otherwise, be addressed to the satisfaction of the township prior to issuance of a certificate of consent, that all outstanding taxes, fees, and charges are paid, if any. Barb?
Mr. Chair, I move to grant the application.
Okay. Do I just read this one again, or do I have to? I need a seconder. Brian, sorry. Do I read this, or is there another on the form?
No, it's the same motion.
It's the
unless-
same motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any opposed to granting? Oh, sorry, Ken.
Yes, my apologies, Mr. Chair. I wonder if we should go through, if Bill could go through the conditions that were suggested by the county, because I just want to be careful of a couple things that they've suggested. The planning team has discussed the suggested condition related to the water balancing. And as I recall in discussions with the school board, the school site actually isn't in a situation where that water balancing condition, if my memory is correct, really would need to apply. So I'm wondering if we might need to have just a brief conversation with the applicant about that. But I think Bill mentioned that most of the county conditions were mirrored in here. So I just want to make sure that we go through that before the committee grants approval.
Very well.
If I
Bill?
may, then thank you, Mr. Chair, and Ken, the two conditions that were mentioned are the water balance analysis and the stage 2 archaeological. There is a condition in the resolution that was read that we're recommending that agreements be signed with other agencies. So we haven't had a chance since that came in to have a fulsome discussion with the county on the water balance and this archaeological, but the water balance issue does not really apply to this site. And in the course of discussions of the draft plan, there were several lots, I'll call it frozen, to allow for the full water balance analysis to be completed during the course of developing the subdivision. The water balance, and I'm no expert on it, but basically it addresses the need to make sure the aquifers have an opportunity to recharge for water that may be removed. And so the intent is to allow for places for that, within the subdivision, for water to reach back into the groundwater. And the archaeological is a standard condition as well. We didn't get any comments from any of the band agencies or the METI about the need for that. The issue on that one is timing and when that can be done. So that's why we left it kind of open in there, that the agreement would be that comes out of site plan approval would address the county conditions, and maybe the applicant, Corey, or someone could comment on those two studies as to whether they would be able to complete them in time for this lot to be conveyed and construction to begin.
Thanks, Bill. From my perspective, I agree on the water balance. I don't believe it actually, like the design of the school block is going to impact it. The stage 2 archaeological right now is scheduled to be completed in May, but it's whenever the snow melts and the ground dries up to a sufficient level that they can get out on the site. From my perspective, I think as long as it's done as part of the site plan approval process, that would ensure that it's addressed, but it wouldn't potentially hold up timing of being able to finalize the severance and convey it to the school board.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, then I believe the county conditions are covered under the resolution as read.
Okay, thank you, Bill. So we did have a seconder, and for a mover and seconder to grant. So the decision of the Committee of Adjustment is to grant the application with the following conditions of the consent, which are that one, that minor variance A1324 on section 54B is in full force and effect so that the temporary access permitted is for construction purposes only. Two, that an agreement be executed to provide that the temporary access be built and maintained to a standard satisfactory to the township, that all township vehicles and other public authorities be permitted access on the temporary road, and public roads within the subdivision will be constructed by the owner to the township's satisfaction before occupancy of the school is permitted. Three, that an agreement provides for water and sanitary facilities during construction, including fire protection, satisfactory to the township fire department. Four, that the proposed school site conveyance does not reduce any parkland dedication requirements that may apply to the entire Glenelg Phase 3 subdivision. That a reference plan of survey be provided, including a description and/or terms for the temporary access to the severed lot to the satisfaction of Township Public Works, that standard conditions apply as recommended by other agencies and township departments, including that all requirements of the township, financial or otherwise, be addressed to the satisfaction of the township staff prior to issuance of a certificate of consent, and that all outstanding taxes, fees, and charges are paid, if any. And that's that. Oh, any opposed? Sorry. Seeing none, that is carried. Okay, the next one on the docket, as they say, is A1324 Dundalk Village 2, Inc. The purpose of application A1324 is to consider a minor variation on section 54B of the zoning bylaw, which requires lots front upon and have direct access to an improved public street. The proposed school site will front on future roads, Bradley Street Extension, and unnamed roads, streets A, C, and E. These proposed roads are not yet built by the developer to municipal standards and dedicated as public streets. The subject lands are proposed to be created by consent application B824 to allow a building permit to be issued to allow school construction to begin as soon as possible. And the effect of the application is to allow temporary access to the subject lot westerly over the county rail trail to Corbett Street so that a building permit can be issued to allow school construction to begin. The temporary access will be used for construction purposes until roadways around the proposed school site are built to municipal standards and dedicated to the township. The Blue Water District School Board has submitted minor variance A1424 on building height for the proposed school building. Location of the subject land is concession 1 southwest TSR lot 225, concession 2 SWTSR lots 225 and 226, RP 16R 7565, Part 1, Geographic Township of Proton, Township of Southgate. Is there a request for deferral or withdrawing of this application?
Through the chair, there have been none received.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. And may I have clarification that the sign was posted?
Yes, through the chair, the sign was posted and notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act.
Great, thank you. I will now ask our planner, Bill White, to do his reports.
Thank you, Chair Shipston. The comments are essentially the same as the severance file. The GRCA noted that the property is not within their regulated area, and so long as the draft condition is recognized, they do not have any objections. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority deferred to the GRCA. The historic Saugeen Métis did not have any objection. They recommended using green development measures. And the County of Grey had the same comments regarding the location of the property within the primary settlement area, the draft plan of subdivision approval that's been issued, and the 5 conditions that they were recommending as part of the consent application are noted again. I didn't see anything different as far as their comments related to the minor variance, at least this particular minor variance. If the chair and committee wishes, then I could briefly go through the staff report, which just for fun covers both minor variances, but I'm sure the secretary treasurer will be able to accommodate this in the minutes, but if the chair wishes, I can do the report now.
Everybody wants to hear it? I think we want to do that, Bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're getting a little repetitive here, but file A13 is a variance on section 5.4B, which requires lots front upon and have direct access to an improved street. And file A14 would permit a 12.6 meter building height on part of the building, whereas the general maximum height requirement in the township is 11 meters, with some exceptions. The variance on section 5.4B would permit the school site to be separated through consent application B824. The lot would be owned by the board, and the construction access would be temporary until the roads in the subdivision are built. The minor variance on building height only permits part of the school building to support 3 stories. The childcare, the gym, the 2 classrooms, 2-story classroom area will be below the 11 meter height. We have reviewed the 2 applications relative to the overall design of the subdivision and looked at the 4 tests under the Township Official Plan and the Planning Act. And as a reminder, those 4 tests are whether the variance is minor, desirable for the appropriate development and use of the lands, and maintaining the intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. We believe both variances can comply with those 4 tests. We're recommending that on files A13 that the temporary one condition that the temporary access be for construction purposes only, and that access be built and maintained to a standard acceptable to the township. and that all township vehicles and other public authorities be permitted access on the road. And as far as the building height, that site plan approval be obtained for the school before a building permit is issued. And that the 1.6 meter height only apply to part of the building proposed to be 3 stories. Building elevations be included in the site plan agreement to verify areas where the maximum height will be exceeded. And as was mentioned by Mr. Melanson, the zoning bylaw does exempt certain mechanical features that would be encroaching into that height. And it's appropriate that the board makes effort in its design to essentially hide those features from view in most cases. Happy to answer any questions.
And are there any questions? Jason?
Just going back to the roadways, and maybe I missed it, they're talking about the school opening in 27, which hopefully it does. What if the roads are not assumed yet by municipality for some reason? And like the Minimum Standards Act and stuff on the road, what happens there? Like, when we're talking about school buses and stuff, I just kind of wondered.
Through the chair, let's hope that doesn't happen. I guess the way the conditions worded is that the roads have to be to an acceptable standard before the school can open. So the idea is that we'll all work cooperatively and keep each other in the loop, and that won't happen.
Okay, thank you. Any others? No. Where are we? Are there any others in attendance that would like to speak in support of this application? Seeing none, are there any others in attendance that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing none, I will again ask the committee members if there is any requirement for further discussion, review, or ask if any conditions are required, if not already mentioned. Seeing none. With the resolution, do I read the same one that I did before? Because I can't see it on my, staff report in this one.
Okay, through the chair. So as we are hearing 2 applications together, the
Yeah.
A13-24 and A14-24, there's a resolution for the one application, A13-24, which is the roadway access provisions.
Okay.
So you would read that, or I could read it.
If you could,
Have
well, I
them
could,
have a vote, and
Yeah.
then we'll move on to the height.
okay,
Um,
great. So, mover and seconder to grant. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, Alicia,
Chair, would you like me to read the motion?
if you could.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment receive for information staff report PL 2025-005 for files A13-24 and A14-24 Dundalk Phase 2 Inc., Concessions 1 and 2, SWTSR Part Lots 225, 226, Glen Phase 3, and that the committee approve minor variance application A13-24 on Section 5.4B of the zoning bylaw regarding lot frontage on a public street, subject to the following condition: that the temporary access be for construction purposes only, and that the access be built and maintained to a standard satisfactory to the township, and that all township vehicles and other public authorities be permitted access on the temporary roadway.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So the decision of the Committee of Adjustment is to grant the application with the following conditions of the consent. And may I refer to you again, Alicia?
Just
Yes,
that the
this-
temporary access be for construction purposes
Okay.
only, and that the access be built and maintained to a standard satisfactory to the township, and that all township vehicles and other public authorities be permitted access on the temporary roadway.
Okay. Decision of the Committee of Adjustment is to grant the application with the following conditions of the consent. The applicant shall have 2 years in which the conditions must be met.
And then, sorry, the motion for the second minor variance application is the height.
Yep.
It does have a different condition.
Okay. Yeah, we need a vote. Yes. So all in favor? Any opposed? That's easier. Any opposed? Seeing none. Carried. Thank you. And, the next one?
Yeah. So we need a mover and seconder for
Need
the
a mover
second
and
motion.
seconder for, is that A1424?
For A1424,
Okay.
yes. So be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance application A14-24 on section 5.3 of the zoning bylaw regarding maximum building height of 11 meters maximum, subject to the following condition, that the site plan approval be obtained for the proposed school before a building permit issued, and that the 1.6 meter additional building height only apply to part of the building proposed to be 3 stories, and building elevations be included in the site plan agreement to verify the areas where maximum building height of 11 meters is to be exceeded.
Great. And any opposed? A mover and seconder. Sorry, everyone. Mover, Barb? To grant. Okay.
Do you have a seconder?
Joan? Joan will second. The decision of the Committee of Adjustment is to grant the application with the following conditions. Applicant shall have 2 years in which the condition must be met. Any opposed?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, there's the standard condition.
I can read the condition
Yeah, if you
again.
could. I can't
That
find
the
it right
site
now.
plan approval be obtained for the proposed school before a building permit issued, and that the 1.6 meters additional building height only apply to part of the building proposed to be 3 stories, and building elevations be included in the site plan agreement to verify the areas where maximum building height of 11 meters is to be exceeded.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. And that is it, the adjournment. Do I have to read all that? There's a lot of reading. The notice of decisions from today's meeting will be signed electronically by members and distributed accordingly per the Planning Act. The committee decisions may be appealed pursuant to Section 17D of the Planning Act within 20 days of the date of the notice to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And I ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Barb, seconded by Joan. If I had a gavel, I'd hit it.